Hey everyone, welcome to another video. I hope you're all doing well today and I'm really excited to share some art with you. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you how to paint an apple in watercolor easily. I'm going to be doing it in my A5 Fabriano Watercolor Sketchbook. This is 300 GSM, so any brand of the watercolor paper that you have will be fine for this. And I'm using a few different size brushes here. So this is number 4 silver black VV brush. This is a number 3 Princeton brush. And I've got mop brush number 1. So with these brushes you don't have to have the exact same brands or anything that I have. Just a watercolor brush will be fine. Alright, let's get right into it. I've got a rough sketch line of the apple here. So before we paint it, I'm just gonna wrap the sketch line a little bit. We don't want the sketch line too thick, and all we need is just a light sketch line to prevent from showing when the paint's applied on it. So I just lighten a little bit. Okay, so let's start the painting. I've got my colors that I'll be using here. There are sap green, cadmium yellow pale, cadmium orange, cadmium red deep, and black. And we will need a glass of the water for mixing the paint and cleaning the brushes. Here I'm mixing up some red and orange together to get a reddish orange. I put more water here to make it transparent. I start with this watery paint, and I'm just dabbing on the apple evenly using a mop brush. We don't need to concern on details yet in this stage because this just to cover up the apple shape. So what I'm gonna do first is blocking the base layer on the apple. I tend to paint with the transparent or light color at first, and then followed by stacking the layer using the darker color gradually to build the apple shape and volume. So it makes me easier to painting. Then I give some yellow on the top right side of the apple for the bright area, and let the yellow spread slowly. So I'm gonna wipe out some paint here because here is gonna be the brighter area, so I don't want to lose the shine. Then I paint towards the top and put a bit of red here. I dry it off with a hairdryer before I put the next layer. I think that's already dry now. I need to lighten up the sketch line again because it's still visible. Okay, let's continue with the next color. Here I'm gonna use the same color like the first layer, but make it a bit more dense than before. Now I'm using the mop brush. I tend to use it for blocking in the bigger shape because it gets the job quicker. I'm stacking over the first layer and leave some areas that will gonna be the brighter area of the apple. I switch to smaller brush to paint on the top area of the apple. I'm adding some yellow to the red mixture on the palette, and then I put it on the very top of the apple. Back to the palette and mixing up some red and orange together. Then stack up again. Also put some of that transparent reddish orange on the brighter areas and try to soften the transition. Keep going on to the right one. Next, I'm gonna mix some green and red to make a darker color. So in this stage, I'm gonna put it to make the dark tone of the apple. So this is the result after I finish establish the dark tone. So here I'm gonna mix up again the green and red together. Now I'm just gonna repeat the same technique for the next coating until I feel the dark tone quite right. Now mix some orange and red and put it from the bottom here. And slowly towards the top. As you can see, the paint is still wet and I'm just gonna drop it in an even darker color to make the dark tone stronger. So this wet on wet technique in watercolor. So basically, it's applying wet paint onto wet paper or added to walls of fresh wet paint. I've got orange here and I just dab it evenly on the lighter area until the surface looks smooth naturally. So now I'm softening the transition between the light and dark over there, cause we don't want to get any hard edge there. I'm gonna emphasize the dark areas on the bottom and the top of the apple. I soften again this lighter area using the remaining color on the brush. Keep going on to another bright area. I coat it again using watery reddish orange Stanley and make a bit lighter on the top right side like this. With a damp paper, it makes easier for me to make the surface smooth because with a few brush strokes, it will make the colors blend perfectly with each other. Now the shape and volume of the apple are starting to appear, and I'm just gonna tidy up the color that I feel not quite right. Next, continue to work on the top part of the apple. Give it yellow a little bit and blend with other reddish colors there. Just pull a few strokes with that reddish color using the tip of the brush. I just lighten up the sketch line right here because this is gonna be another bright area of the apple. Just make sure there are no sketch lines will appear after overlaid with the color ladder. Continue to cover that white area using watery red. Just do it evenly. Give a few strokes using a darker red on the very top of the apple. So now I'll switch my brush with the number 3 Princeton brown brush. Let's straight to the palette. Then make orange brown mixture by mixing some orange, green and red together. This is gonna be using to create a leaf stem at the top of the apple. Just start by stroking that paint over here until forming a leaf stem. I just used a light color for the beginning. Then continue to make the new color mixture for the leaf. I pick up some yellow and green. Just mix it together to get a light green or sort of yellowish green color. So this will gonna be the base layer. And we are going to do the same process as the apple earlier, that starts with the light color in the beginning. And then we are going to build up some layers. In painting the base layer of the leaf, I just use fairly water, and I just put it immediately to the paper. So this is wet on dry technique in watercolor. It's basically applying wet paint onto dry paper, or wet paint onto dried paint. So the paint will only go where your brush takes it. I've got established the leaf with a light green, then now let's make a darker green mixture. Pull a stroke line in the middle of the leaf. Then now start creating some details on the leaf with a darker green. I'm leaving a few light lines for the vein of the leaf. I soften the leaf's vein with a darker green. Keep going on to the bottom leaf. I just cover it and give a little flicks on the edge of the leaf, just like this. I soften a little bit here and pull a straight line using a brush tip here. So now I'm stacking up the upper part of the leaf using even darker green to emphasize the leaf shape. And also give a little flex on the edge over here to form the leaf motif. For the bottom part of the leaf, I'm gonna drop with even darker green, and then emphasize the details on the leaf edge. Okay, now let's move back to work on the stem. And after this, we are gonna paint the shadow on the bottom. Okay, now we are entering the final step, which is painting the shadow of the apple. Now I've got watery dark color here, and let's try putting underneath the apple. I use wet on dry technique in the beginning. I'm using dark brown for the shadow here, just like the same technique on the other part. I put light color first and then darken it gradually. We work in layers. I'm using the mop brush and dab it sort of oval shape underneath the apple, just like this. Then I'm adding some black and a bit of red and orange to the mixture, so I get really dark color. Then I drop it onto wet light paint. Now I'm using number 4 silver black wavy brush. Let the color spreading. This is effect produced by using the wet on wet technique in watercolor. And soften evenly. I'm adding some reddish stroke here and there to showing the red reflection of the apple. And the last thing, I'm gonna soften the edge of the shadow with watery mop brush stroke to make the shadow look more natural. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this little video. This was just a snippet of the full process of this painting tutorial, and I hope you had fun watching. I have made a full-length tutorial of this painting for my Patreon, and I'll be publishing it very soon. So if you want to take a closer look at my watercolor technique in painting realistic, you can hop on over to my Patreon site where you can take a full-length video with voiceover and the reference photo that I used. And I'm gonna say a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon and my subscribers here on YouTube. Anyways, if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, subscribe, and also click the notification bell and share this video with your friends. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you guys are having an awesome day, and I'll see you again soon.